Hello everybody, in today's video I discuss a global issue in the most British way possible whilst driving a German car. Today's star is a 2005 Audi A6... Oh wow, crikey blimey. Sorry everyone. I'm not much of a nature person, but occasionally it does appear and I have to become amazed by it. There is a bird over there, chilling like a villain. Alright, you probably may have to see him out this window. I'm going to try and get a better shot of my mobile phone, but obviously, safety first, I'll pull up and stop the car. Don't want to be breaking the law. Wow. Oh, you're magnificent. I hope one of the cameras got that. That was spectacular. On that note, by the way, I have filmed on this road quite a few times, and I've noticed this time round a lot of detritus on the side of it. That really does wind me up. I think the next time I come to visit here and I've got a little bit of spare time, I'm going to grab a litter picker and a bag and sort this out because it's really getting to me. I'm sure quite a few of you have noticed in a few of my videos I'll do a slightly humorous drive-by shot with a piece of random roadside crap in the foreground and the car in background. Up here in Scotland, of course, there's many an iron brew can strewn about. But on this stretch of road, apparently the favourite beverage is McEwan's Export Strength. It reminds me of the first time I went to Dublin and there were cans of this stuff called Dutch Gold everywhere. And I asked the cabbie what this was all about and he said, oh, Dutch Gold, fantastic stuff. You used to be able to buy it by the pallet. Don't forget, if this video inspires you to get on the hunt for an old school Audi estate, make sure to use CarVertical, the super-powered super search that cross-references a number of databases from across the globe to give you all the information you want to know on any car you're thinking of buying, including accident damage, mileage issues, usage as a taxi, which for something like this I would be concerned about, outstanding finance, and they'll even give you some handy hints and tips, common model failure points that you may want to know when you're going to inspect something. For a special discount on the service, don't forget to use my link in the description down below. Anyway, back on track. Today I am driving a 2005 Audi A6 Avant TDI SE with the 2.7 litre turbo diesel engine. In many ways, this really is a follow-on piece from the one I did about my friend Chris's Skoda Octavia, where I extolled the virtues of bargain bin motoring. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of that today, but also talking about the car and why I think this really is motoring done right. However, though today you'd certainly call it something of a bargain, this A6 cost its owner an awful lot more than the Skoda, because Andy has actually had this car from new. I want to say a big thank you to him. Incidentally, he's my accountant's father, and though Andy the accountant's dad may sound like the worst children's TV show you've ever heard of, he's actually a lovely and very nice bloke. So thank you, Andy, for letting me borrow your car. When he specified it 18 years ago, he had absolutely no idea this was to be his final company car, but when he left the firm, he kept the car as part of the bargain and has never really seen any reason to part with it. And now I can see exactly why he feels that way, because in so many ways, just like the Skoda, this is a car that really does a little bit of everything. So let me talk you through the specification of this car, because it's a bit of an odd duck. In many ways, quite like the Skoda actually. So up front you have a 2.7 litre turbo diesel engine making 180 horsepower, 280 pound-foot of torque. I think that's about 380 newton meters, and currently not achieving very good fuel economy. The trip computer says I've got just 27.8 to the gallon in the time I've been driving this, and when I picked it up, it was only on about 28.5. This may be down to the fact the car does a lot of urban driving. Even when it was new, it didn't really have much of a commute. And though, yes, we all know that's really not what diesels are meant for, it came from the era when diesels are what people wanted. And though this isn't a particularly pokey car, it is smooth, quiet, refined, and this is the kind of engine that really helped popularise the diesel. Only a generation before, really, a diesel was a pretty horrid thing. They were unrefined, often taken straight from a van, and their only real virtue was the fact they were fairly unbreakable. They weren't even that economical, and they certainly weren't powerful. One of my friends at school had a 205 diesel nicknamed the Chug, and it wasn't inspiring. This, though, by comparison, is a masterpiece. Smooth, refined, relatively torquey with a good spread of power, though in old-school turbo tradition, it doesn't come in to about 2.5, and it's done by 4. The later twin-turbo 3-litre V6 was sensational. Remarkable though it may have been in period, the engine today actually is maybe the most humdrum and probably undesirable bit of the car. The things that actually surprised me when I finally saw this were the fact that it's blue, not company car black, which so many are, and it's just an uninspiring colour. Incidentally, this being a 2005 makes it one of the first of the C6 generation A6. That is the one that to us petrol heads birthed the V10 twin-turbo RS6. That's quite a car, that. Wow, the Honda CR-V in front of me just put 2 wheels on the grass. The other thing that took me by surprise was this being a company car specified by an older gent to use on his commute with a big diesel engine up front. I thought, of course, it's going to have the automatic gearbox. But no, it has a 6-speed manual in it. More than that, it's actually a fantastic gearbox. Quite light, just the right amount of notchiness, a shorter throw than you might expect, and virtually no play in it whatsoever. This is a fantastic box. It's such a shame Audis so rarely get spec'd with manuals now. They're really quite good at it. The final shocker was another thing I thought this car would have, but does not. It being a nice big car up here in Scotland, I assumed it would have been specified with Quattro, because that really is why many people buy an Audi. But no, it's front-wheel drive. Dominic helped his dad spec this car when new, and earlier he talked me through some of the logic. Previous to this, Andy had had a series of BMWs and Mercedes, but in the late 90s and early 2000s, Merc were doing an awful lot to ruin their reputation. Particularly in terms of things like rust, the company was no longer building cars the way they had used to. So Dominic said, right, don't get a Mercedes, you've had BMWs, why don't you try an Audi? The exact logic behind getting an A6 Avant, I'm not sure, but these are a very capable, very practical car with oodles of space in them. It's hard to believe, I know, but these are nearly 5 meters long. In other words, they're actually an appreciable amount longer than a first-generation Porsche Cayenne. I do know that they went with the smallest wheels available on account of the increased ride comfort, and that is a decision that today I'm truly thankful for. They also went with the leather interior, which would have been an upgrade for the SE model because it's easier to maintain and does feel a little bit more upmarket. It's actually worn the years very well. And as you can probably tell, this isn't exactly a car which has had attention lavished upon it at every opportunity. It's a very honest example, shall we say. The front bumper is currently wearing many a scar and has already been repainted multiple times. Up top, we appear to have a roof garden because the sunroof is, well, it's growing something. I was going to try and open it to see if it works, and I'm sure it probably does, but if it doesn't, I'm in trouble. And I did watch The Last of Us last night. I have played the game as well, and I'm seeing mould above you. Shall I? Yeah, all right. Oh, it works! Blooming heck, it works! Does it shut, though? I love sunroofs in cars. I really do. Ah. Oh, thank God. Oh, there was a moment of genuine panic there. There was a moment of genuine panic. Inside, you have dual-zone climate control, which would have been quite fancy for 2005, and also a little multimedia display up here, which doesn't work. Now, in the 18 years that Andy has owned this car, it has been relentlessly reliable. It has been, for the most part, serviced by a local specialist who do exactly what is needed and no more. One example I'd like to give you is that one day Dom came to visit his father and noticed that his car was, well, listing quite a bit, and the spring had completely gone in multiple places. That got replaced, but of course the other one wasn't done, and today the car is demonstrating some unusual handling characteristics that we'll talk about in a little bit. But overall, it has never failed to proceed. It has always got him where he was going and has been utterly and completely faithful. It really hasn't asked anything major of him, ever. And you know what? You sit in this car and there are just little things you notice that remind me why I've got such a fondness for German cars of this era in particular. From the fact you sit in here and it's lovely and comfy, and the seats are quite nice, the steering wheel has just the right amount of buttons on it, the dash is perfectly simple, logically laid out, also familiar, I think, to anybody that's driven an Audi of, well, any description of this period, up to and including the R8. But also silly stuff like the windscreen washers. I mean, just look at these. God, they're serious, aren't they? I feel like there's a bloke with a Karcher behind them going, yeah, come on, let's get that window clean. Let's do a good job, lads. And I do love that sort of stuff. I really, really do. Were this French, that roof would probably have packed up by now. And actually, let's be honest here, were this British, it certainly would have packed up. It's not even that crusty. I haven't really spotted much rust, if any, on it. That's really quite impressive. It's also quiet, comfortable, refined, a lovely motorway cruiser, I'm sure. And when on the motorway, I've no doubt it will actually return decent fuel economy. I know this engine in this car is certainly capable of 40 plus mpg. It's just not when you're having fun or driving around town. It's on bits of road like this where there's small wheels, where those big profile tyres really come into their own. Yes, it's rough, and I know you can hear that, and I can feel it a little bit, but not anywhere near as much as I do in many other cars. I drove up here in an Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and though you would think that should be a brilliant GT car, actually, for just about anything boring, this is vastly better. Quieter, comfier, smoother, more refined. Lovely thing, actually. I think I prefer the gearbox and clutch in this as well, but don't tell Aston Martin, all right? Now, I did go on a bit of a rant, didn't I, about how reliable this car has been just after I may have told you that the infotainment has packed up. If I didn't tell you that, the infotainment has packed up, but I don't count that because, well, the infotainment may or may not have broken after the car was jump-started, and somebody may or may not have put the connectors on the wrong way around. And apparently, when that happened, it just stopped working. Complete coincidence, I'm sure. I think I noticed there too when I put the car into reverse. The rear window wiper started going of its own accord. I love little touches like that. As I'm big into Italian cars, I do appreciate those things. I know people have gotten used to them over the last 10 years, but I haven't. What's it like to push on? Well, interesting. I haven't bothered rigging an exhaust camera, so I'm going to give you a bit of a director's commentary as we do this bit. Apologies also for the constant knocking noise. Dominic's dad is not an alcoholic. I bought a couple of bottles of fizzy pop, some fancy rhubarb lemonade from M&S, and I should have put them in the other car, but they're in the back. Oh yes, there's the traction control lights. Go on, let's take it to the red line. $4.5 grand, so not much. The steering rack is quite slow, much slower than I expected, but maybe that's just because of the stuff I've been getting used to. Yep, even with mild throttle applications, those Hankook Ventus tyres are having to work pretty darn hard. 225 sections all round, so not especially wide. And the car does lean quite a bit. I was following Dominic in his mother's T-Roc with the 1.5 litre turbo engine, and I did not have a hope in hell of keeping up with him. That may be partly due to the fact that Dominic is a British auto test champion, but also I think that car is just much better for doing this kind of tight stuff. This is a big, long, near 5 metre barge, and it's not designed really to be hoofed around a bend. And yet still, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And yet still, there is a real charm about trying to do this kind of stuff in this kind of car. Oh, yep, there's the traction control going again. Not a light thing this, probably about 1.7 to 1.8 tons. The Avant with the diesel would have been one of the heaviest options you could have had here. I am actually beginning to build some confidence with it, but it's a car where you need to be really quite smooth. You cannot just chuck it into a bend. It does not like that, does not appreciate that. It'll try and wash wide very quickly. And on occasion, I have also noticed the rear becoming a little bit tetchy, shall we say. There's been a few moments where I've gone over a rougher surface of road and you feel the back just sliding about a little bit more than you'd expect it to. Odd that, because when I checked, I figured that maybe the rear tyres had gone. They're actually much fresher than those on the front, and they have had their pressures checked too. Still, this is a perfectly pleasant thing to make decent progress in. It works fabulously well. And why is it I have put that big clickbait title up there? Well, a couple of reasons. First off, one of the comments that I get in some of my videos that I really do take to heart is when people say, James, you only do really expensive, fancy supercars, Lamborghinis and Porsches and Ferraris and Maseratis and all that sort of stuff. And that upsets me for two reasons. First off, because it's just not true. I do lots and lots of videos on cheaper cars, and I've always been really passionate about making sure that I feature cheaper cars. No matter what it is that I'm able to afford or access in my professional and personal life, I want to make the point very clear: at all available opportunities, cheap cars are cool. And I refuse to say affordable cars for a couple of reasons. A lot of people get upset with me when I say cheap car rather than affordable car. They think I'm being insulting. Well, I do that because in the case of this and the Skoda Octavia, they are cheap cars. This one, as an example, they were offered 1,200 quid by We Buy Any Car. That's one of the reasons that they've held on to it. Secondly, if I say the word affordable, I'll probably upset even more people, because they'll go, well, it might be affordable to you, but it's not affordable to me. Or what about some poor bloke that's got 3 pence and a packet of pork scratchings? He can't afford that car because it's 200 quid. And you know what? I can't be bothered. Let's try and be happy. So one of the reasons I've used the clickbaity titles is because it gets people to watch the videos, and if people watch the videos, hopefully they'll realise that I do make content on cheaper cars. It's just that if I give it a nice, sensible, boring title, if I called this 2005 Audi A6 Avant diesel is actually quite good still, nobody's going to click on it. This is the mechanics of YouTube. You may hate it, I may hate it, but I'm afraid that's just how it is. However, there is also, I think, a modicum of truth to this particular title, because this is a car which in its 18 years has covered just 62,500 miles. And that's not really very many, is it? That's not many at all. If Andy were the sort of person who had your typical lease deal every 3 years, changed his car, in that time he would have gone through 6 cars. Half a dozen of them. He'd just about be on his 7th. And because of that, though it may be really easy for us petrolheads to look down on people that have cars like this, scruffy looking old things that they don't particularly care for, I hate to admit it, but he's actually doing cars kinda right. As far as I'm concerned, there are really only 2 ways to do cars correctly. Either the petrol-heady way that many of us do, we buy often used cars, have them, enjoy them, look after them, pass them on to a fellow enthusiast, and then they'll have a nice, long, healthy life. Or you do it the way that Andy's done it, the way that my girlfriend's parents do it. You buy a car new or nearly new and essentially run it into the ground. And by doing that, you've extracted the maximum value out of the car. You've had it for as long as you can possibly get away with. There is absolutely no plan whatsoever for Andy to part with this car, which is right, because there shouldn't be. Stuff like that over there, a Rover 75, a gorgeous, glorious car, mocked I'm sure by many, including at various points myself, but actually a brilliant thing, and this is no different. It's comfy, it's wafty, it's nice, it does the business. And the fact is, for people like Andy, who simply do not do that many miles, to have a car this way, I think, is better overall. It's going to work out cheaper for him, and I genuinely believe it will likely work out better for the planet. Now, please, I know it's very easy to do, but don't take me for some stick in the mud that thinks diesel is better for the kiddos than electric. That's just not true. I fully and firmly believe, and have stated many times, that I think electric cars are a big and very important part of our future. However, I don't believe that they should be the entirety of our future, and the reason that I and many others have cited many times is exactly personified by this kind of car. In its near 20 years, it's done just 62,000 miles. If in that time he had bought 6 electric cars, 6 Teslas or whatever, I am certain that his CO2 contribution, and no, I'm not an idiot, I am more than aware that when it comes to certainly things like diesels, it's not just CO2 that matters, but I am pretty certain that there's nobody out there that could say, oh yeah, definitely, honestly, promise you 6 Teslas that have done between them 60-odd thousand miles would have been better for the planet than this. If you want to try and convince me in the comment section, you're more than welcome to do so, and if I can be convinced, and I am open-minded, I assure you, I'll make a video and say, you know what, I was completely and totally wrong. These cars are evil, let's burn them all now. Maybe not burn, that probably isn't the right message, is it? But you get what I mean. And so for those reasons, that is why I am here today championing an 18-year-old dirt cheap Audi A6 diesel, because it's actually still an annoyingly good car. And yeah, sure, it's not perfect, but I don't believe the perfect car exists, and for its owner, it was the right choice to buy it, and it's an even better choice to keep it. So, if you've got a story about somebody that's had a car for an inexplicably long amount of time and you think they're actually somewhat genius, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear from you. But for now, a huge thank you to Andy for lending me his car, to Dom for playing Automotive Seller Black, and as ever, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.